We're back on page 30, and we're talking about federal laws and various laws that legislative bodies pass. We left off in about the middle of page 30 with the Investment Company Act of 1940. And again, because of the fact that we've gone into so much detail previously, just kind of a recap of it, a reminder of it here, let's go ahead and transition into the Investment Advisors Act of 1940. So same year on both of them, but one is the companies, the other is for the folks. So the Investment Company Act is the investment companies themselves. Investment Advisor Act is the folks who do what? Give advice on securities. They do so for compensation, direct, indirect, or otherwise, and that's their business. Okay, so basically, kind of the three-legged stool, and those are the three things, three conditions that have to be met. Now, this not being the investment advisor exam, you may need to take the Series 65 or 66, one of the, well, 65 if you take the Series 6. So if you do need to do that, of course, check out our videos because we have those posted. We hope to be helpful to you there. And it's going to go into just tons of detail about the Investment Advisor Act of 1940. For here, just kind of skimming across the surface will be plenty good for us. But like I say, check out those other videos because it goes into all the detail that you need for the 65. And while you're checking, remember our sponsors. Everybody on the site has your success as their goal. We want to partner with you in that success, so be sure to visit our sponsors and get their information, talk to them. They're good folks, so be sure to use those resources. But the Investment Advisor Act of 1940, for our purposes, like I say, we define an investment advisor, but banks are excluded. Banks typically are not falling under the designation of anything that we're going to talk about in these exams. They're not broker-dealers, they're not investment advisors. And we're talking here about, like I say, just think of the bank that has checking accounts, savings accounts, safe deposit boxes, car loans. I'm starting to run out. Okay? Don't think about your major international banks, money center banks, whatever. Certain professionals also are excluded from the definition if the advice that they give is incidental to their main practice. And it's like there's an acronym for it, LATE, L-A-T-E. This has a good possibility of showing up on the exam. Okay? Lawyers, accountants, teachers, and engineers. Okay? If those folks give investment advice, but it's not their main business, they don't have a separate billing for it, they don't hold themselves out as investment advisors. You know, the one that threw me off the most was like an engineer. Because you think, guy driving a train? No, if I'm going to be investing into a real estate program, let's say, and I'm concerned that there are going to be structural problems with the properties, I may hire a structural engineer to go out. What's he going to do? He's going to give me his report, going to give me a bill for that report. I look through the report, and on the back page it's going to say, you know, Dan, there are so many structural issues with these properties. You're opening a can of worms if you invest in it. Or it's going to say, I didn't really find anything bad, so from my point of view, you know, I wouldn't see anything wrong with investing in it. That's investment advice. But what? It's incidental to that structural engineering work. Okay? So if it's incidental to that, now he can step out from that by saying, here's a bill for my engineering services and here's a bill for the conclusion, which is investment advice. Or an accountant would be a great example, puts an ad in the yellow pages on the internet, something like that, that says, fast, accurate accounting work, and a pretty darn good investment advisor too. You know, if you hold yourself out as an investment advisor, you are one. But in any event, that LATE acronym, and then broker-dealers are also excluded, even though they give tons of investment advice, but that's incidental to generating commissions and markups. Okay? They can step out from underneath their umbrella, just like the lawyers, accountants, teachers, and engineers, by charging separately for investment advice, and that's called a wrap fee in a wrap account. In other words, we charge a fee that wraps itself around the asset pool that you have. Our business has just changed from transactional to managing this pool of assets that the fee wraps around. So in that case, the broker-dealer would become an investment advisor. The next law is the Security Investor Protection Act of 1970. SIPC was created by that, and SIPC protects investors against broker-dealer bankruptcy losses. That's it. What if the broker-dealer steals your money and goes to a different coverages for that, okay? They're gonna have fidelity bonds or something like that, not SIPC. What if the market goes down? I am so sorry, but that's just kind of an occupational hazard of an investor. What if the broker-dealer goes belly up? There you go. That's where SIPC coverage kicks in, all right? It is a privately funded membership organization. FDIC is gonna be a federal agency. SIPC is independent. Now, it's very well funded, and every time that you do a trade, they're going to ding you for, maybe a penny, a nickel, something like that, and it goes into the kitty, but it is still privately funded. All right? And what you're covered for is that you're covered for, first of all, this is a good probability for a test question. There's one coverage per separate account, per separate customer, excuse me. I have to word that correctly. So, basically what I've got Dan Mars IRA, Dan Mars Special Options Trading Account, and Dan Mars Special Commodities Trading Account. How many coverages do I have? One, because they're all me. How many of those 4 accounts are covered? 3, because only 3 of them, it's the Securities Investor Protection Act. In my commodities account, I'm a commodities speculator. I'm not a securities investor. Or I'm a commodities hedger. I'm not a securities investor. So commodities, you're going to kick it out. You have an all the following except question, man, sniff out that question for the word commodities. There's your answer right there. Okay? But I have Dan Mars. Dan and Kathleen Mars joined with right of survivorship. Kathleen Mars. Now, how many coverages do I have? I have 3. Okay? Now, my wife was an English major, so I am obliged to use proper grammar here. Okay? Don't tell her I said that. Of course, it's going to be on a video on YouTube where it's open to the world, but hopefully she won't go to this video, okay? There is I, there is we, there is she. Now, it sounds clumsy, but that's actually proper grammar, okay? There is I, there is we, there is she. I, we, and she are each separate customers. So we'll have 3 separate coverages. And that coverage, like I said, when I thought about that, I said, that's a good way to remember that, So anyway, now what I've got is each of those separate customers has a pool of coverage that's $500,000 total, of which half can be cash. We're going to assume that you want your dollar bills out first. So if you've got a situation where you've got $450,000, it sounds like it's all going to be covered. But if $300,000 of that is cash, okay, now you're only going to have $250,000 in cash, and so there'll be $50,000 that's not covered. Okay? Or if you have $1 million and $200,000 of it is cash, then you'll get your $200,000 covered. That leaves you it leaves you $300,000 rather of securities that can be covered there. So like I said, what is this actually goes like that, because whatever is used up here, the balance from wherever that line is right there all the way back around, that's what's covered in securities. All right, so there's the Security Investor Protection Act. Again, commodities are not covered because commodities are not securities at all. The Telephone Consumer Protection Act, cold calls is what it deals with. You're limited to 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Man, that's 13 hours you can cold call in. Oh, well, wait a minute. You love to cold call that much? And you're on the East Coast? Why, you can cold call another 3 hours if you call into the Central, the Mountain Pacific time zone. In fact, if you really like to go all the way out to Hawaii, any volunteers? Yeah, didn't think so. Okay. Now, do not call lists have to be maintained by your firm. Okay. And that's about all you'll see on that. Regulation SP, that's a special privacy regulation. SP, and it ties into the requirements of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Privacy Act. It protects customer confidential information We have to make disclosures of what we collect, how we use it. You've seen it before. I mean, you get this stuff in the mail that, oh, I don't want to read this whole thing, but they've got to send it to you. It's Regulation SP from a broker-dealer, okay, the Graham-Leach-Bliley Privacy Act, like from banks, what have you. So what can we do? What do we collect? How do we use it? And you don't want me to disclose this to affiliates? Okay, fine. You can opt out, and you have to make it really easy, okay? You go to the internet, you download this form, you print it out, you fill it out. You save it as a PDF, you send it back. You check the checkbox and hit opt out. And that's pretty complicated, okay? Or you check the checkbox and drop the postage paid card back in the mail. You call the toll-free number. Keep it simple. Think of grandma, okay? My gosh, what kind of mail does grandma get, you know? And she really ought to opt out of some of that stuff. But anyway, that's the Regulation SP. Uniform Securities Act, this is not the Series 63 or the Series 65, so you just knowing what the Uniform Securities Act, if it's uniform, it implies that there are different entities, and those different entities are states. The Uniform Securities Act is a template that the states, most of them have adopted, pretty much in unchanged form. There are a few differences from state to state, way beyond the scope of any of the tests. Blue sky laws, that's the term you want to pair up with states' laws in general and Uniform Securities Act in particular. Blue sky laws. Okay? And the provisions, they essentially mirror the federal laws with regard to investor protection. Again, there are differences. Yes, we don't want to take the time to go into them here. So anyway, suffice it to say that if it's not okay at the federal level to defraud people, it's not okay at the state level. Okay? Okay, the USA Patriot Act and money laundering, dealing with AML or anti-money laundering activities. Now, one of the things that shows up from time to time, the USA Patriot Anti-Terrorism Act, it says, what's the purpose of it? And one of the answers is to stop terrorism. Wrong. The purpose of it is to prevent money laundering. Because the thing is, you can't, terrorist activities are against the law anyway. But how do you prevent them? You cut off their flow of money, you starve them to death. Okay? They're not getting any money in. In fact, I heard one report that, I don't know, just on the news, so I don't know how accurate it is, but that Al-Qaeda was basically reduced to the point of having to buy and sell used cars to fund their activities in some areas. I don't know. But you know, the thing is that you choke off their money supply and they can't do anything. It takes money to do anything, even terrorist activities. So anyway, that's the purpose, is to prevent money laundering. And then what are the stages of money laundering? Placement, layering, and integration. Placement, layering, and integration. We've heard reports that this is on the test. You don't need to know a lot of details, but man, that just screams for all of the following except, doesn't it? So placement, layering, integration, and coordination. Whoop, coordination, that's my except. Okay. Then currency transaction reports, or FinCEN reports, have to be filed. CTRs, all names for the same thing. There's a required on cash transactions of over $10,000. Emphasis on the word over. If it's $10,000 even, it does not require a FinCEN report. All right, and then wire transfers into or out of the country of over $3,000, you do the same thing. All right. Now, structuring should be reported as well. So the thing is that I bring in $4,000 in cash today, I bring in $2,000 in cash tomorrow, I bring in $3,000 in cash the next day, I bring in $5,000 in cash the next, whoa, time out, time out. I am way over that $10,000. Report it. I'm trying to, well, I could be, okay, I could be structuring my deposits to where I'm just trying to avoid those FinCEN reports. So report it. If in doubt, report. Okay? Now, the thing about it is, let's look at that activity that I had. Is that necessarily a bad activity? No. I have a buddy who until very recently owned a grocery store. Guess what? The guy has thousands of dollars of cash a day. He can't leave it in the store. He's got to take it to the bank. He's going to, if you didn't know, you'd think he was structuring. But he's just doing just normal cash flow. I mean, literally cash flow. So there's nothing suspicious about that. But if you see something that looks suspicious, there's a form for that. It's, you smell a rat, you grab a smell a rat report. Right? The suspicious activity report, and you smell a rat, whenever it's needed. And then identification is required at the time of account opening. We talked about this with accounts. Why does that guy not want to show you his driver's license? Why does he say, well, I don't want anything to my physical address? Okay, fine, we can have a mailing address, but I still need your physical address. Well, I really don't want anybody to my ex-wife is, it's not the heat, it's the humidity. Suspicious activity report. And in certain circumstances, just don't open the darned account form at all. In fact, financial institutions may, in fact must, exchange information between and among themselves about possible money laundering activities because they've got to work together to stop it. And then you've got the OFAC, or Office of Foreign Asset Control, which has a list of specially designated nationals, or SDNs. There's an acronym for everything. So that's the acronym on that. They can block accounts, freeze accounts, require you to do the same, or your broker-dealer to, require you to refuse to do business with certain persons. But like I say, it all goes back to stopping the money flow into terrorist activities. That's the whole purpose of these things. So that wraps us up then on the laws. In the next module, next module too, we'll go into FINRA and other SRO regulations.